Yeah, thanks, Kate. So I'm farming up at Breeder in northeast Victoria and running a commercial sheep flock there. And so I'm going to explain how or what we do on farm and how EID allows us to do that. So I'll be referring to these ewes out here, which are different maternal lines of ewes, and how we're measuring their production just through using EID. So Jason started this trial because there was very little maternal ewe trials being done, so he kicked one off himself. And this has been the timeline of events, and I'm just going to step through this timeline of events and break it up a fair bit. So don't stress out and think, oh geez, that's a lot of measuring. But the black lines are where we've taken a measurement. So they're the events that have happened. And then the red lines are, what do I get out of that? What information do I get out of that? So it started back 2 years ago. So these ewes out here are 2 years old. They're lambing down. They're about to lamb down as their second lamb now. So looking back at 2015 when they were born, we looked at we did landmarking and added the lifetime data to them, and I'm going to show you very easily how you can add data to an animal without even bringing it in the yards. And then, looked at the weaning weights, got a weight gain and that sort of thing, and a survival of those lambs. So of the 6 different maternal lines, outside we got their lamb survival as lambs, whether or not that's their genetic impact or not, but that's what we measured, and a weaning weight, a 130-day weight, which was their slaughter weight as well. But I'll just quickly talk you through, because it's now mandatory in Victoria, everybody will order their tags and get a tag bucket file. Has everyone heard of a tag bucket file? There's a few people that haven't, and I certainly didn't know what it meant when I first got sent one, or what on earth you could possibly do with it. So this is what it'll look like, and I was going to work through it on Excel because it's very easy to add some simple life data to these animals just on this bucket file before or at landmarking, but you don't have to have any equipment. And this is what I would do very first up. So I get this Excel file, save it as a file, but then start another file and call it 2017 lambs. Delete that column, don't know, don't care, don't need it. Delete that, and I delete who manufactured it because I don't really need to know that either. And you'll get an EID number and a serial and your visual tag number on the outside linked up. And then you can go through, and your first landmarking mob is twins. Put twin in there, like this is that night, you're landmarking, and you can just write down in your notebook. Number 1 to 270, they were twins. They came from maiden ewes, copy paste down to 270. You're getting some life data of who these lambs are, but you don't have to scan them or anything. You don't have to own anything. Put down what age they're from, and I'm going to explain very simply in an example why that can be very important to know if they're from maidens or from older ewes. Maybe you know the breed of the ewe, or a certain class. If you're classing on merino, maybe you're in 6 months shearing and you've got some still in 12 months, you can say these lambs are all from the 6 months shearing ewes, these ones are from the 12 months, so all of a sudden you've got some information about some history behind that lamb, because that lamb marking, you're going to go put them all together and you lose all that information. So it's a really good time to then capture what you know, whether it's paddock that they were born in, etc. So I was going to do a quick example of that, but hopefully that all makes sense, and you can just use that as a quick data capture of critical information, and you may not even use that then, you might put it aside, but at least you know who the lambs are if you ever do need it. So this is an example when I was doing my Nuffield a couple of years ago of farm in New Zealand and why it is important for them to know if the lamb came from a maiden or if the lamb came from a older ewe, because we know the older ewes will milk better, so the lambs will probably be heavier at weaning than a lamb from a maiden ewe. So they knew this, they then joined the lambs as ewe lambs, and to get 80% in lamb of the lambs that were born from maidens, they really only had to be 37 or 8 kilos to achieve 80% in lamb, whereas lambs born from the mature ewe are up around 40 kilos. So if you're at the draft gate going, anything under 40, I'm not going to join it because that's what we're meant to do, but you're taking out all these lambs that were born from maidens, but you didn't know that, so genetically they're probably better, but they just didn't quite get enough milk, or other reasons, but they're lighter, they'll join it exactly the same. So that's when that life data info can help, because you can make sure that you've got some information behind who you're selecting in. And so if that ewe is 38 but she's from a maiden, maybe we'll keep her. So they now have that 2 kilo difference if she's from a maiden versus if she's from an older ewe. So that was quite a real example of how that data that you can't see can actually help make a pretty important decision. So back to the ewes outside, we took the wether lambs, kill weight, followed them all through the abattoir and got a carcass weight, dressing percentage, and lean meat yield and fat score on them all. So I'll just show you that. And all of this data is out on pen cards. So go and have a more in-depth look if you're interested. But this really just compares to the mob, and I can do that to the individual as well. I mean, that's why we're using EID. But this is down to the mob of the percentage of wethers that were turned off at that first kill. So quite a range, 96 to 70. The different carcass values of those wether lambs, the dressing percentages. We've got a live weight, obviously, before they got killed, a carcass weight, and then a lean meat yield, and a fat score. So back home, to make any use of that, I converted it to dressing percentage, and thought I'd just, because you can see that there's a huge range in dressing percentage, and obviously it's, I think I worked out, $6 a kilo. It's 20% difference is $60. It's quite a lot of money. So, but on farm, I want to target, so these lambs, so to explain, sorry, the light green and the red are out of spec product, and so would be discounted if that system was bought in. So I want to hit those lambs in spec for weight and fat. So we use LDL that Mark Inglis talked about, which is livestock data link, and I think it's brilliant because you get direct feedback on what it actually costs you for those non-compliant animals, and how many fell in the spec, so you can make some informed or changes for next year. So that to me was quite interesting to see that range. So looking at the 2016 year, we then joined all those ewes as ewe lambs. So I got their scanning percentage, a marking percentage and a weight, and I'll just show you how I did that. Because we had so many lambs fall out of spec the year before, I thought I need a marking weight so that I can track my growth rates a bit earlier and sell those lambs earlier. So that's what I did. Then we got growth rates of the lambs and also a wool value per mob. I didn't do individual, just per mob. And this is just a quick video to show you this lamb weigh box that my brother made, because he's a brain. He's got a good brain for that. So I used this last year, and just all the lambs went into this box. There's a reader on the side there, reads them, got the weight there, automatically weighs it, lets them out, and it really didn't slice up at all, but it meant that I got the lambs were in the system from the get-go, and then, as I said, you can add all that information that you already know about where they come from to them, and track your growth rates a lot better. So that was just a video I made for Tom. I wasn't meant to be promoting it, so it was just to show you. That's why I quickly clicked off it. Anyway, so got the ewe lamb weight, the scanning percentage, and then a landmark to use join figure, which I think is an important figure to, and I mentioned this to the other groups, but it's one of those figures that landmarking percentage is so highly quoted, over-quoted I think, because you don't know, you start comparing yourself to someone else's value that you don't really know what they're quoting. So I think quote it to yourself, understand your lamb's mark to use join figure, and you can work out where your wastage is. Is it your ewes? Is it are they getting in lamb? And so you can start targeting where your leakage is there. But yeah, I reckon just quote it to yourself and benchmark year on year rather than quoting it to everybody. We got a wool value just per mob, so it's quite a range in wool value there. And so as a total productivity value, which is the idea of all of this, is you get a lamb value and a wool value, and you've got an economic value per animal or per group at the end of the year, and you can start to make a bit more informed decisions. Again, with that growth rates, there's a bit of a range there in growth rates. At weaning, you can target anything growing over a certain grams per day and draft on that. When I was feedlotting, I used to draft on weight gain per day, and you'd group all the animals growing at a certain weight together so that you could target them. You can put them on your forage crop, you can order the truck, you know sort of when they're going to go, and just be a bit more specific with your numbers and when they're going and all that sort of thing. So I think that having that growth rate at weaning and targeting where you're going to put your weaned animals is really quite helpful. And then so coming along to where we are today, these ewes outside are now 2 years old. They're about to have their second lamb, so they weaned the lamb, they got back in lamb, and I took their adult weight, their condition score, and a scanning percentage, and then what we'll do down the track is get another lamb marking weight, because they're all joined to the same sire breed, and a percentage, and then I'll look at matching those ewes and lambs, getting a ewe to lamb weight ratio. So if they're enormous, they better have an enormous lamb to make me put up with them. So just sort of correlating the adult weight to how many lamb, or the kilo of the weights of lamb that they'll raise, and then also a wool value. So this was quite interesting to me. There was a bit of a range in condition, but it didn't necessarily correlate directly with a scanning percentage in the second lamb. So, you know, it might indicate that ewes don't need to be higher condition. They're not going to respond if you want to feed them more to get them higher condition. You might not necessarily see that in higher scanning percentage. So even knowing that, how your lambs respond to extra feed and will you get that back is quite important, because some ewes will and some ewes won't. But you know, that top ewe, they're running at 3.12 sort of condition, scanned the best. Well, that's quite valuable information. And then that's what we sort of want to look at this year. So we'll continue on the thing, and at the end of the second year, I think we'll have some really good economic data to make some more informed decisions at classing based on not just how it looks, but what it's done economically. And that's the aim. So just a few things I've learnt and still learning is that data analysis takes a lot of time, and don't underestimate that. It's it's something I think probably is underestimated when with everything, if you want to start measuring things, but to actually analyse it, use it and make sense of it, it takes a fair bit of time, so just take that into account. There's some alternative ways is that you can actually, there's people out there now that you can send your data to and say, can you please sort that for me and send it back to me? And they'll know what you want to breed. They'll know your breeding objectives and work with you. I think it's probably not a bad option because they're very quick at it and it's really quite cost effective. Or you could use programs that do the same thing I quite like doing it, I'm not very good at it, but I like to see the results. So I use a program to do that. Take note of things that you should have measured or that you measured and you probably didn't need to, because I've certainly measured a lot of things that I didn't really need to, but you discover that along the way. And if you forgot to measure something, you thought, oh, that would have been handy if I knew that, then just do it next year. It's just an evolving thing, has been for me anyway. I certainly still get it wrong sometimes. I try and convert a measurement to a value, not just an interest's sake. Just go, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? But what value is it? So you're not over measuring. And I think keep refining your breeding or your business objective and understand what it is. Keep refining it as you improve one area. You might have to start improving the other area and align what you measure with your breeding objective. And I think if you can get your breeding objective up nice and early and just target the things that you need to and marry that up, that's when it is most simple and most effective. And I think just being realistic with your figures. If it's low, go, oh, I'm not going to quote that to anyone, quote it to myself, but I know what I need to improve now, or the other way around, that's really good now. So I think just be realistic. You don't have to share them with anyone but yourself. So in summary, it's allowed us to look at total productivity on an individual level and a mob-based level, on an economic level. It's certainly made it a lot more accurate than taking all that sort of measurement without EID. And it also allows identification of production you can't see, and I think specifically around your weight gains per day. You can't see that. You can't see what your issue's from. You can't. So some of those things, or what she scanned last year, how can you see that unless you? So that can be really where it's beneficial, is the things you can't see, but are quite critical. And I just to add to that is bring in the human side of it and understand what you like to do as well. What animals do you like? I know that if an animal's really productive but she's just a pig of a thing to handle, then I don't really want to breed more of them. So they've got to be able to be handled. You've got to be wanting to handle them. If they're going to get fly struck every year, that's not in there. So you've still got to take into the consideration that human side, or what do you want to do? Do they like pushing under fences? Or do they go, oh, that's a fence, I might stay here? Because that's really inconvenient when you've got to draft sheep all the time. So things like that, and there's others, are just as important as cold hard data. So that certainly aids the decision process, but you've got to bring in that other human side and visual side as well. So really it's just helped us get where we'd like to go. And that's an example. Thanks.
Would that be worth looking at, or?
Oh, definitely, yeah. We certainly look at this survival as a segment, so you know how many ewes you put in there and how many lambs should there have been and how many are there. And that'll give you definitely, if you need to target that, and then put that figure, I think, in how many ewes did you join, looking at the whole picture. So, because, lambs marked to ewes alive at lamb marking is fairly not helpful if you've got other areas that you need to work on. Yeah. You should be sent that because you're Victoria. Yeah, so everyone that orders tags now should be sent a tag bucket file, and it'll pop up and you'll go, what on earth is that? Well, it's just a list of the EIDs and a corresponding... Yeah, it should do, and if you didn't, there was a couple last session too that they didn't get it, like they've ordered their tag but they didn't get it, so come and see us and we'll make sure, because you should be getting that as you order your tag. I've used quite a few different brands. We use the Shiwa ones currently, but I've had no problem actually with any I've used in retention, particularly of late. Like those button ones were a different story earlier, but you wouldn't, not many people would use them now only because those other ones are a visual as well. So yeah, I don't have any problem, but just make sure your tag person at landmarking's just putting them in the right spot, because that'll more than likely be the problem, is that they'll just rip out the side because they're too close to the side, or mostly I haven't had trouble with infection or anything though. I've done the last 3 years I've matched ewes and lambs, and just the range gets me doing it each year because it's massive. Like you can have, in dollars, well the top 25% of ewes wean more than double the bottom 25% of ewes. So you'll get a range from sort of $50 worth of lamb to, $250 worth of lamb. So the range is quite enormous. And I just think if you're paying the same amount for all those ewes, some have paid themselves off from year one, and some they'll do it in a few more years. So I just think it's one of those areas where it's quite critical, but it's obviously the hardest to measure as well. And I know we did some work with some sensors which will match ewes and lambs in 15 minutes, but it's not commercially available yet. And then I looked at the price of DNA, I think it's $21 a test or something currently as well, so that's pretty high. But it does cost a bit. It costs about $5 worth of grain to match it ewe and lamb for me, but my brother used a molasses mix which costs very little, but because the ewes love it, all you need is something the ewes love. So it might be quite handy being dry, like they love water. That's the best to get them through this. I haven't explained very well what I'm talking about, but they've got to walk through a panel to get them matched up. Yeah, so anything you find that they love that's cheap, you'll be able to match ewes and lambs, and then you just wean your lambs, take a weaning weight, and all of a sudden you've got a weaning weight per ewe live weight. And yeah. Yeah.
With that, how long do you find it takes to train them to walk through the
Oh,
panels?
not very long.
So if you were to just put it out, just try the landmark, because that need the tag obviously, and leave it in there for 4 to 6 weeks, is that enough to get
Oh, heaps. Yeah, I don't even do that. But I will set it up and I'll leave a few gaps, and then you just start closing them off, and then they have to walk through the one. But generally it'll take 2 or 3 weeks to get 3 really. But I've done it in 2 to get a higher enough number in your flock, like 90% of that mob matched.
And what about mob size?
So first mob we did was 460 ewes with the twinners, and we got about 90-something% matched. So that was quite good, but they knew exactly what, they were well trained. I've had worse than that of late because they don't know what a feeder is and they don't like it. Yeah, so it's all about the training.
Authorised by Victorian Government, 1 Treasury Place, Melbourne.